Hey there! I have a video for you today all about my Thanksgiving, and at the end I'm going to give you a little more information about the history of Thanksgiving and some misconceptions and myths that Americans have about this important history for Native Americans.
Oh, mac and cheese looks so good. Yes.
Yeah.
Good job. This looks amazing. Whoa. We got the potatoes and the charcuterie plates and pomegranate seeds, fried onions, mashed potatoes, green beans. All kinds of food here. This is the stuffing. This is like the bread stuffing and mac and cheese. One thing that I love to do on Thanksgiving is I love to take a walk, because you eat so much food on Thanksgiving that you have to really get some calories burned somehow. So either take a run in the morning or take a long walk. But today it's raining out, so I have to get dressed up for the rainy weather. I want to share with you a little bit about my Thanksgiving this year. And then after that, I want to give you some history about the facts versus myths about Thanksgiving history in the United States. What does Thanksgiving mean to me? It really means being thankful and feeling blessed. I'm thankful for everything that is good in my life. My family, my health, food, having a good job, and my home. I think this is really what Thanksgiving means to me as I celebrate it every year. It's also a time to really relax and make food from scratch. So making homemade bread, another comfort food from scratch, is a key tradition for American families. And it also is for me. What does from scratch mean? From scratch means starting with the basic ingredients like flour, baking powder, butter, yeast, etc., and combining them all to create the food. Taking time to talk with family while sharing food and drink is such a wonderful part of Thanksgiving for me. It's really a time to slow down and take your time to sit around and talk and share stories with your family. Sitting down to a lovely meal with family and friends and giving thanks for the food and love we have is really important to me. And I think this is what most Americans think about as they celebrate Thanksgiving. Here are some traditional foods. We have the turkey, we have the stuffing, and we have mashed potatoes. Another really fun thing that we do on Thanksgiving in my family is we play games. So this is an example of Scrabble. Playing games with family like Scrabble is a fun family tradition. Okay, so I shared some of my family traditions and some ideas about Thanksgiving that I have. Now we're going to move on to a little bit more of a somber topic and talk about Native American history and how it's related to Thanksgiving. What does Thanksgiving mean in the United States for Native or Indigenous people? So Native or Indigenous people, this means the people who were originally here first, before the white Europeans came. So traditionally, many Native Americans lived in something called teepees. These are examples of their homes in the plains.
So it's important to remember that we all live on Native American land in the United States. We need to remember this history and realize the myth of Thanksgiving from a Native American standpoint. So here are some traditional pictures of Native Americans. Thanksgiving for Native people isn't a day to celebrate. It's a day to mourn. They are mourning the lives of their ancestors who were murdered by the first Europeans who came to this land, who were called pilgrims. So mourning, what does mourning mean? Mourning means to grieve those people who have died that we love, right? So when you grieve, this means that you're feeling sad and you're feeling a kind of nostalgia or a memory of these people. And you're giving thanks to the lives that they had. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about reality versus myth. What really happened in Plymouth in the 1600s in Massachusetts? So let's look at some pictures here so you can see some examples. So I searched online a little bit. So the Cape Cod Times newspaper gives a really great article here that was recently published. So what you learned about the first Thanksgiving isn't true. Here's the real history. So here's an old depiction of the Massawa leader, right? So he was the chief of the Wampanoag people. The Wampanoag people, who were the people originally who were here first in Massachusetts, were captured and sold into slavery. The first Europeans, or the pilgrims, brought diseases with them that killed many native people. So when we think about the history of the United States, we see something like this in our history books. We see a nice picture of the first Thanksgiving. This is something that I remember seeing in my history books when I was a child. We see these lovely pilgrims helping the Native Americans by sharing food, the Native Americans helping the white Europeans by helping them learn how to farm and learn how to survive the winters, right? This is what I remember hearing, is that, oh, it was so nice and friendly. What a wonderful first Thanksgiving. This is actually not true. This is more of what really happened. The Wampanoag people were captured and sold into slavery, and they also were killed by diseases that the first Europeans brought with them. What's another reality for this history of Thanksgiving? Massawa, or the Wampanoag leader, did make a diplomatic agreement with the Pilgrims, but it was in the hope that it would stop the violence and incoming migration of Europeans. So it is true that Massawa did make a diplomatic agreement to allow the Europeans to live in Massachusetts, but he did this in hopes that they could build a relationship and it would stop the violence and the slavery that was happening. And he also thought that maybe it would stop the migration of Europeans from coming to the United States. Unfortunately, this did not happen. So I also have some other websites here, that really help to learn more about this history. WBUR has a recent article and podcast that you can listen to about the National Day of Mourning. And this was an old photo from the 60s that depicts the first National Day of Mourning. This is also another website for the United Indians of New England. American Indians is another word for the Native Americans that they call themselves here. And also this website here, slate.com, I think gives a really important quote here. Between 1670 and 1715, more Indians were exported into slavery through Charlestown. This is Charlestown, Virginia, than Africans were imported, right? So I think people don't know about this history, about how the first Europeans actually took Native Americans and shipped them out
of the country. This was just one of the things that happened in the 1600s and 1700s. And this is another website from the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, and it gives the timeline of what happened to the Wampanoag people. So I think it's important to see what the true history is here. And this is another website from National Geographic. This is a picture of the statue of Massasoit in Plymouth, Massachusetts. So this is a really beautiful statue of him. So as you can see, we need to learn the true history of Thanksgiving. And even though, for me, the Thanksgiving does have a beautiful time, we have to remember that actually for Native Americans, this is not a time of celebration, it's a time of mourning. And here are the sources that I used for this presentation.